I'll offer you my position if you can figure this out. However, I don't think you, a high school dropout, could do it. Well, what's the issue? Proceed and give it a go. Brian, the department director, put a tough math problem in front of me at the work social. He was smirking, obviously thinking there was no way I could solve it. Michael, a graduate of Kyoto University, was likewise making fun of me and laughing. After pausing for a while, I mentally worked through the equations. Well, I figured it out. The answer to the Maclaurin series expansion for log 1 plus x is negative 1. What? Did you figure that out mentally? Who is this man? I believed him to be a dropout from high school. Michael and Brian were fussing over something. Most likely, they were perplexed as to how someone like me could figure out such a challenging arithmetic issue. I am Caleb. I am 26-year-old. I recently got a job. However, I'm only an unskilled temporary employee. I was unable to secure a full-time job. I'm working for a major IT corporation. It appears to be an extremely busy area where they would struggle to function without temporary help. It was quite busy, as shown by the fact that everyone was glued to their monitors and that energy drinks were all over the desks. Being placed with such a rigorous company concerned me. Nobody was speaking pointlessly, and the mood was solemn and dark. Although I was aware that the job isn't a place for socializing, it didn't seem welcoming or open. I was a temp. Thus, I had no influence over the corporate culture. I was limited to completing the chores that were given to me. On my first day, I went to welcome Brian, and he laughed at me. Caleb, the temp beginning today, are you? We're busy here, so try your hardest, though I doubt someone like you could manage it. Yeah. You're not a graduate of high school? How come they would send this dropout here? Everybody in this room is an alum of prestigious universities. They all attended respectable, private or national universities. The temporary agency has to be insane. I'll try my hardest. I'm grateful. Okay, give it your all. Not that I had high expectations. He appeared mean to me. In actuality, he was cruel. Why did he have to talk to me like way? When I was resolved to give it my all when I arrived here, it was quite depressing to get off to such a negative start. I was shown to my seat, which was in a horrible state from the last user. There were stains and grime all over the desk. I wanted to ask the previous user what they'd done to make it this nasty, because I was so annoyed by how unclean it was. There were smudges of black and blue ink, possibly from leaking pens, and eraser shavings mixed in with the coffee stains. In addition, there appeared to be snack crumbs, which made it rather unhygienic. I then cleaned the desk with some alcohol spray that I had borrowed. I couldn't get rid of every stain, but it did appear a little better. Michael, the man, sat across from me. His clothing was slim, and his hair was oily and parted to the side. He was attractive, resembling a character from a movie. I started when Michael gave me an explanation of the tasks at hand. Well, someone like you probably can't handle this, though. I felt horrible about what he said. Yes, I really am at the bottom. I don't have a consistent employment history because I've hopped about jobs. To the full-time employees at big companies, I must seem like the lowest of the low as a temp worker, bouncing around from job to job at my age. However, I didn't think it was important to mention that during the first encounter. I was irritated but appreciative of the directions, so I silently went to work. Because the chores were simple and repetitive, I began to feel sleepy. My eyes were fatigued, and my head felt cloudy after spending so much time staring at the monitor. On the first day, I finished the work I was given and left for home. I was pleasantly thrilled to hear they were throwing a welcome party for me the following day. I thought maybe even someone like me was being welcomed, and I felt a little thrilled. It appeared that the celebration was for all of us temporary employees, as there were more of us. The rest, however, were primarily part-time homemakers. Though I was a little embarrassed being the lone man, I was grateful for the greeting. I worked hard that day, excited about the restaurant we would be visiting. An excellent izakaya hosted the welcome celebration. Due to their obligations to their families, the ladies remarked that they didn't often get to consume alcohol outside, so they were glad of the occasion. Most likely, they gave their husbands complete control over all domestic chores for the evening. I didn't mind going out late while I was single, but I became aware of how difficult it must be for women who have kids. The celebration had extravagant food. It was in an izakaya, but it was a luxury one, serving fatty tuna and sashimi with whole fish. Michael grabbed away my attempt at eating some fatty tuna with a scornful smile. "This is too delicious for a dropout from high school," he remarked as he eagerly consumed it. "What a jerk," I thought to myself, and got upset. Brian happily ate all of the silver-skinned fish that I attempted to devour with his chopsticks. This place has wonderful silver-skinned fish. The texture is flawless. Ah, the best after work. Snacks are beer and sushi. I apologize. Did you want any? My fault. Oh no, it's fine. In any case, you shouldn't be consuming this as a high school dropout. Have some garnish here, such as this radish. It tastes great. No thanks. How about this chrysanthemum then? No thanks. Brian continued bringing me the sashimi's chrysanthemum and garnish. I was upset that he seemed to be intentionally being cruel because I didn't want to eat that. At a welcome celebration, why was I required to be treated in this manner? They treated the other temporary employees well, but not me. A male temp worker must be considered the lowest of the low by them. Perhaps that is how society perceives it. Though I think everyone should have their own method of working, there's a trend to think men should be strong breadwinners and work full-time. That outdated perspective persists. Brian was extremely inebriated from heavy drinking. He was drinking maybe 5 bottles of beer or more, and just by looking at him, I was concerned. Michael was also a heavy drinker and was rather inebriated at this point. That they were getting wasted at a gathering for temporary employees struck me as absurd. Acting all superior, the two of them began boasting about their past accomplishments. Michael apparently graduated from Kyoto University, and Brian from the University of Tokyo. They were contrasting the results of their entrance exams. Michael claimed to have received 95% in both math and English on the SETR test, whereas Brian boasted of achieving 85% in the arithmetic portion of the common test. It was tedious to hear them brag about their intelligence, and the other temporary employees appeared to be in great discomfort. Michael was 36 years old, while Brian was around 55. At their age, it was depressing to witness them boasting about their former glory, but it's likely that they were unaware of how pitiful they were and continued to boast. I'm brilliant at arithmetic because I studied the humanities after first studying science. This explains why, despite being a humanities student, I received an 85% on the math portion of the common test. Additionally, I received a flawless English score. Brian, that's really impressive. You are the greatest. Oh please, Michael. Courtesies don't lead to success. No, it's incredible that you can still be proficient in arithmetic after transferring to the humanities. You also received your degree from the University of Tokyo. And Kyoto University, the glory of the West, is where you received your degree. We are unable to defeat the University of Tokyo. That is untrue. Kyoto University is the greatest in Kansai and is renowned for its liberal arts curriculum that produces a diverse range of brilliant students and exceptional individuals. Indeed, there are a lot of oddball individuals. We also throw hot pot celebrations throughout class, along with costume graduations. It's a little different at the University of Tokyo, because there are more bookworm types there. However, both universities are excellent. And Sarah, you also graduated from a reputable university, am I correct? Sarah was abruptly confronted by a woman who was carrying a CPU and had set it down on the table. She had a perplexed expression. Sarah, you didn't graduate from Osaka University's School of Engineering Science? Were there not many girls present? Indeed, it is accurate. In engineering, men predominate. Indeed, there are a lot of men. Sarah earned a science degree from Osaka University. This indicates that 3 alumni from former imperial colleges are present. As one might anticipate from a premier organization, the staff members have outstanding educational backgrounds. Japan's best university is the University of Tokyo. The top national university in Kansai is Kyoto University, and Osaka University, A former imperial university renowned for its robust science programs is Osaka University. If I look around, I'm sure the temporary employees include more grads from esteemed private institutions or other old imperial universities. There may be someone who graduated from Keio University or Waseda University, but is now mainly a homemaker. I'd assumed that because I had heard tales, we had to be smart to be brought to this organization. Then Brian turned to face me and grinned while he said something hurtful. "Hi, Caleb. How are you doing in math?" "Well, I believe I'm fine." He claims to be all right. A dropout from high school who claims to be proficient in arithmetic. To be proficient in mathematics is to have completed an engineering degree. Solving quadratic equations is arguably the definition of mathematical proficiency for a high school dropout. Michael laughed loudly. Yes, as a high school dropout, his level is probably just quadratic equations and linear functions. I had no idea why that was so humorous. I wasn't making any jokes. I was just responding honestly. I mentioned that since I excelled in math in school. Then Brian reached inside his bag for paper and pen and began to write. It proved to be a mathematical issue. "Are you able to solve this?" "That one is difficult." "You high school dropout, I'll give you my job if you can figure it out." He is incapable of resolving that." Michael remarked. "That's too mean, Brian. Come on, he's never going to solve it anyhow." I answered right away, "No, this is not difficult." "How come? Are you serious? This is an extremely difficult issue." "No, I'll figure it out immediately. Please give me a short while." "Is this man for real? You're crazy. You are unable to solve it mentally." "What topic are you discussing?" "I think I figured it out. The expansion of the Maclaurin series for log 1 plus x. The response is 1 less. "What? Did you figure that out mentally? Who is this man?" I believed him to be a dropout from high school. The response is right. He truly worked it out in his mind. How in the hell? This is not logical at all. Michael and Brian gave me a shocked look. I nearly burst into a buzzing fit of pride. "Caleb, you truly excel at arithmetic, completing such a difficult task quickly. You are quite intelligent. Really, who are you? Inform us." The stunning Sarah came over to me, curious to find out who I really was. I made the decision to make it public. Well, in actuality, Megacorp was founded in the U.S. by me, the engineer. What? Megacorp? The well-known SNS company? Indeed, it is accurate. The business that created Faceline and Instant is Megacorp. What are you saying? Is this man the creator of the well-known Megacorp? I don't think so. I truly am the founder of Megacorporation. Whether you believe that or not is up to you. However, I left the company for a variety of reasons. So did you secretly get your degree from a prestigious university in order to work here as a temp? No, I did not complete high school, the equivalent in the United States. I was unable to return to middle school once I quit going. So you were a U.S. resident? Yes, I grew up in the United States. He's a returning student, no way. Yes, even though I was born and reared in America, I was a Ruri student. I didn't consider Japan to be my native land. I was, in a sense, a returnee. I was born in New York as my parents were American business owners. Up until elementary school, I had pals, but the jocks bullied me when I started high school. The popular, gregarious individuals at the top of the social hierarchy are known as jocks. They were large and powerful, and they played rugby. I became a target for the jocks because I was little and skinny. They would verbally attack me and hide my belongings in the locker room. I began to detest school after having such encounters. I started skipping courses because I found going to school to be boring. Though they were concerned, my parents only kept an eye on me and didn't make me attend to school. I had given up on going to school altogether by the 8th grade and was staying at home. The computer that my worried parents got me was my major company at the time. I created my own games and learned programming through trial and error. In addition, I thought it would be entertaining to design a website where users could cast votes for the most attractive or attractive person. The jocks that teased me didn't have a lot of beauty. If they came in last, I was curious to see how they would respond. I thus designed and launched the website. I initially thought it would be great if even a small number of people were interested, but the website quickly gained enormous popularity, with my entire school using it. That website evolved into Faceline SNS. At first, I only wanted my school students to compare faces, but then other schools expressed interest, so I opened it up to the public. Faceline became more and more popular over time, and a lot more individuals began to use it. It was something I made for fun, but it's used all over the world now. I have made an SNS called Instant for sharing photos. My father was a big photographer, so he definitely inspired my interest in the field. I noticed women happily using their phones to take pictures of meals when I was in Japan. I initially didn't understand why they were taking photos, but then I discovered how cute Japanese cuisine is. Unlike the generous portions of sweets in America, the presentation and decor are extravagant. I made Instant because I assumed a photo-sharing SNS would catch on in Japan. Naturally, it gained popularity in Japan. When American celebrities first started using it to give glimpses of their lives, Japanese women were inspired to publish glimpses of their own opulent lifestyles. They posted photos of their lavish hotel stays, beach excursions, and parties. These pictures featured a ton of appetizing-looking food and beverages. Everyone seems to enjoy taking pictures of food. I was 16 when this got popular. I was already the Japanese equivalent of a high school dropout. By then, having already left school. When I was 16, I could live comfortably and had my own firm. Americans who drop out of high school are sometimes forced to live in poverty. However, I was fortunate enough to have an aptitude for business, which spared me from that destiny. My parents were first concerned, but their concerns were allayed when they saw my business thrive. I got offers to become a professor at Harvard and Stanford as a result of my commercial success. They wanted me to teach business tactics in the economics department and programming in the engineering department. I turned down the offers since I didn't feel comfortable speaking in front of others. And those jocks had been recommended to those universities. When things was going well one day, my father unexpectedly died in an accident. After work, he was struck by an inebriated driver on his way home. I was distraught and had to talk to my mother about what to do next. We made the decision to close the business because, in my absence, my father could no longer manage the chores involved in running the company. I gave Megacorp to someone else since I was numb and could no longer run it. In retrospect, I believe I was not required to part with the business. You may operate an SNS business from any place. I could have carried on with the business even after my mother and I decided to return to Japan. After all, even during my time in the U.S., I had been working from home. I was faced with a hard reality when I went back to Japan at the age of 18. In Japan, there is a strong new graduate culture, and going off course is frowned upon. Those who took gap years, changed jobs, dropped out of school, or took repeated years were all looked down upon. In contrast to the U.S., where one can thrive solely on the basis of their skills, I felt constrained by the Japanese demand for uniformity. I registered with a temp agency to work in Japan after turning over Megacorp. After reviewing my credentials, the staff member at the temp agency asked me, half laughing, if I was the genuine founder of Megacorporation. It's likely that they didn't trust me. I said, that company was mine, over and over. Yeah, of course, they answered. Their condescending laugh irritated me a little. I dressed like a high school dropout since I knew no one would think a teenager could make something like that. I made the decision to play the underdog and give it my all because there was no use in boasting about my stellar background. I have therefore been acting out the part of a high school dropout. Although I did drop out, I had a lot going for me. By the way, Brian, you attended the University of Tokyo to study physics before deciding to become a lawyer. You excel in science and work for an IT company because of this. Yes, that is correct. Then you should have no trouble with math. And Michael, you earned a scientific degree from Keio University, so this ought to be easy for you too, right? Well, yeah. I hastily typed a math problem using the paper and ink that Brian had given me. Brian and Michael were moaning as they struggled with the issue. Well, this won't work if it's more than 3 because there isn't an integer solution. No, if there are 2, it works. Oh no, what is happening? How are we expected to demonstrate this? They can't even solve this easy problem. I smirked as I observed them. It may sound cruel, but I thought it only right to celebrate their struggle because Brian and Michael had been the ones to torment me first. Smirking with amusement, the other temp workers watched as Brian and Michael continued to rack their brains. They may have believed these guys aren't all that amazing after all. The Osaka University alumna Sarah then whispered inaudibly, "Wait, you can't fix this? Isn't it awful? So can you solve it?" Sarah asked. Sarah, all right, show it to me. Reintroducing these into the original equation, assuming that square less than take 3 is a rational number. Sarah completed the task I gave her with ease and speed. It appeared as though she was actually having fun. She must be a real science buff, I reasoned. I wasn't particularly confident because I had studied programming, engineering, statistics, science, mathematics, computer science, and business on my own. However, I thought I was at least superior than Michael and Brian. Sarah asked me how I thought she did once she had figured out the problem. I reassured her. That's correct, because her response was right, and she appeared really happy. Hooray, I'm overjoyed. That was enjoyable, said Sarah. Caleb? No, but even so, it's incredible how fast you were able to figure it out. Sarah, you really are amazing. Sarah says, oh no, I'm not as good as you, Caleb. She gave the right response, so I advised her to be confident, even if I was a little anxious about whether or not I was remembering how to prove it. Sarah, thank you indeed. I had a great time, and it felt like I was a student again. No issues. Many thanks. While I was happy chatting with Sarah, Brian and Michael appeared frustrated. Perhaps they had harbored feelings for Sarah, but Brian was already married and Michael wasn't involved. For a married man like him to harbor affections for a 20-something lady was very unsettling. The welcome party was over, but Michael and Brian looked dejected. Perhaps they were disappointed that they couldn't figure out the issue, or maybe they were saddened by Sarah's remark that they couldn't. In either case, they were quite ugly. Though I knew it wouldn't help, I cast a chilly gaze on Brian and Michael as I began to feel a little sorry for them. Subsequently, the supervisors chastised Brian and Michael for their mistreatment of me. This workplace had strong moral standards, and unethical behavior was met with harsh consequences. Michael, who had subordinates, was finally replaced by one of them, and is now on the sidelines. Brian was demoted. I kept up my temp work for an additional year. I accepted the company's offer of a full-time job. After that, by then, Michael had left because he couldn't take being sidelined, and Brian had been moved to a remote place because of another problem. For me, this greatly improved the comfort level of the workplace. Sarah, on the other hand, put in a lot of effort, was promoted, and was quite capable. She also pushed for measures to make the workplace more pleasant, such as outlawing unpaid overtime and penalizing harassment. Caleb, the company has truly changed as a result of your efforts, Sarah. You still do so much for everyone, despite your demanding work schedule. Sarah, there's no issue. It's critical that I live in a comfortable setting. Caleb says, but isn't it tough doing all these things while working? Sarah, not at all. I was desperate to make changes. See, I experienced bullying too. Caleb, what? Sarah, I was bullied till high school, but I couldn't express that at the welcome party. I could scarcely go to school because others called me gloomy and odd. However, I concentrated on my studies because I wanted to disprove them. And you were accepted into a national university? Caleb, Sarah, you're quite intelligent. Sarah, not quite, I think. Caleb, you're the wise one. You've learned everything on your own. Sarah, it turned out, had been bullied as well. She had been regarded as gloomy in high school, and wasn't always as happy as she is now. She had daily hardships and was teased by the popular females. She studied diligently at home and only seldom attended school, though, refusing to give in. Her family wasn't affluent, Therefore, they weren't able to pay for her to attend private colleges or extra classes. She had to apply to universities throughout the country. The nearest national university she could drive to from her house was Osaka University. Thus, that was her goal. As Sarah and I became closer, we made plans to spend the following summer vacation with her family. Her parents were great and loving people, even though their home was old and dilapidated. It was easy to see why Sarah was so generous. She had come from such a loving family. It was unusual to hear her talk in her native Osaka dialect, something she seldom did. It felt as though I was witnessing a different side of her. After we began dating, we were married a year later. That someone like me, who hasn't even completed high school, could become the proud parent of a university graduate like her may seem miraculous. She worked hard and made as much money as any male, even after we got married. I once told her, "You can quit your job if things get too tough," since I didn't want her to overwork herself. I will tend to us. But she never gave giving up a thought. But one morning, a year into our marriage, she became ill. I wondered if she was pushing herself too hard. She worked so hard that there was no overtime, yet there was more work. Completing all tasks within working hours became imperative, increasing the intensity of the labor. "Caleb, you don't look well at all. Perhaps you ought to visit a doctor." Sarah, "Not at all. I'm okay. A hearty breakfast will revive me." Caleb said, "But I'm really worried about you." Sarah, "Everything worries you out of control. Never undervalue me." Caleb said, "All right, if you say so." Sarah pretended to be bold, but she really just ran to the bathroom after breakfast. I hurried to the bathroom because I was so frightened, and then I drove her to the hospital. Her stomach was fine, the doctor stated, and he gave her an IV drip. When I looked it up online to see what it might be, I came across the word pregnancy. That could be the case, I thought. I made the decision to take the day off and visit a gynecologist with her. That's when her pregnancy was discovered. The baby appeared to be growing nicely, and she was already 3 months along in her pregnancy. The idea of becoming a father thrilled me tremendously. Sarah announced, "We're going to have a new member of the family," while shedding joyful tears. She worked right up to the very end of her pregnancy, at which point our child was born. Her health improved, and she was able to return to work after her pregnancy reached the stable phase. After giving birth, her recuperation went well, and she soon regained her vigor. She was still in her 20s, which was presumably the reason. When I was a teenager, I never thought I would be happy like this. I used to feel gloomy and believe that nothing positive would ever happen when I was having difficulties in school. I was devastated to learn that I would never be able to go back to America following my father's accident and our relocation to Japan. I chose to live as an underdog in Japan and accepted occupations that were regarded as menial. In addition to cleaning restrooms, I was a traffic controller. Despite being denigrated frequently, these jobs are necessary for a comfortable life. I used to get into convenience stores where I worked and hear high school ladies talking about how dirty or smelled like me. But everyone would be in danger if there were no one to clean up after themselves or regulate traffic. They merely want clean jobs, but everyone may live comfortably, thanks to the so-called lowly jobs. I always felt left out, even while I was temping at several businesses. It hurt to hear statements like the temps were incompetent, or "You can't do this because you're just a temp" so frequently. I used to believe that I wouldn't be in this circumstance if only I had a degree, but it was too late for that. I had to accept the fact that I could not change the past. However, how about right now? I'm ecstatic to be surrounded by family. Never in my life have I felt more fortunate. Yes, there were difficult moments, but they are surpassed by the happiness of life. It's critical to persevere no matter how challenging life becomes. Everything will come together. I want to make sure that if someone enters this company without a degree, they won't face discrimination. Thus, I aim to continue working hard here. I don't want to treat others that way, since I understand how it feels to be treated in that manner. I've been assigned as an interviewer, so I'm excited to see who shows up for interviews. I want to concentrate on their actual potential.